Fox Sports.
We are the Fourth. We are South.
Like the mighty Chattahoochee, the Braves just keep rolling along. They've won 17 of their last 19 games and now finish up a long homestand against their eastern rivals, the Washington Nationals. Good starting pitching's been a key for this Braves' great run, and tonight, young left-hander Alex Wood will try to keep the Braves in the win column. The series opener before a big crowd starts next here at Turner Field. We welcome you to Seattle South. Well, the skies may be cloudy and gray overhead, but spirits are bright here at Turner Field as the Atlanta Braves have a 14.5 game lead over their division rivals, the Washington Nationals. And they're in town for game one of a 3-game series tonight. Hi again, friends. Chip, Joe, and Tom with you. Great to have you along for Braves baseball tonight. Why are the Atlanta Braves in first place by a wide margin? Well, we're seeing some historic pitching performances this year.
Braves have dominated their own division in terms of pitching this year. In fact, they're best in the major leagues at pitching against their own division. Against the National League East, the Atlanta ERA 2.71. The Nationals not too bad either, but the Braves the best in the major leagues, and they've got a chance tonight to improve on that, Tom, with Alex Wood going to the mound.
Yeah, they do. Washington gets their first look at the Braves left-hander tonight, who has not so quietly starting to lay claim of his own to a spot in this starting rotation. You see his last 3 starts, 2-0 with a 1.89 ERA, and really has done everything you could ask him to do. He's gone out there, he's been aggressive, he's pounding the strike zone, using both sides of the plate, using all of his pitches, really hasn't been afraid to throw his off-speed pitches at any point in time. So he's really gone out there, done a nice job filling in, and like I said, kind of laying claim here to, hey, don't forget about me in this starting rotation as well. So it'll be interesting to see for the Nationals their first time tonight getting a look at Alex Wood, see how they react to him.
Atlanta gets their first look at Taylor Jordan. He's a ground ball machine for Washington, which faces an almost must-sweep series if they have any hope of catching the Braves in the East. Those hopes are dim. The future bright for the Braves. Game one of this series comes your way from a big crowd in Atlanta's Turner Field right after this. For game one of the weekend series, it's the Braves and the Washington Nationals, and Denard Span is ready to go. I mean, the Braves and Nats ready to get after it.
I like it.
On a cool night in Atlanta, Georgia. And first pitch of the night is off the plate, ball one. 67 degrees, believe it or not, on August 16th. And there's a strike to Denard Span, hitting .261 for the year, a couple of homers, 33 knocked in. Historically has been a very good hitter against left-handed pitching. That has not been the case for most of this season for Washington. In fact, when we last saw the Nationals, he was batting down in the lineup. Tonight, he's leading off and down a ball and 2 strikes.
They have a pretty good record against left-handed starters, respectable, certainly at 18 and 15, but boy, in terms of their offensive output overall against left-handed pitching, it's pretty much at the bottom of a lot of different categories in the major leagues.
And Span's part of that, hitting .168 this year against lefties. In his career splits, he's a better hitter against lefties than righties, so big disappointment for Washington this year in that regard. Two balls, 2 strikes. Nobody on or out. Just underway at Turner Field. And Wood paints the outside corner. Marty Foster rings up Denard Span. 1 up, 1 down. And here's the rest of the Nationals Toyota starting lineup. Span first. Ryan Zimmerman hitting second and struggling there. Bryce Harper's third. Jason Worth is red hot. He's their cleanup man. Desmond, LaRoche, Wilson Ramos, Anthony Rendon at second. And Taylor Jordan hits ninth.
And left-hander Alex Wood making his 6th start on the year. 2-2 with a .278, and as we said in the open, he's been throwing the ball real good as of late.
Good command too, Tom. He's not falling behind a lot of guys, or I should say not going to a lot of deep counts on guys, making them put it in play.
Zimmerman puts that ball in play to center. Schaefer drifts back and shy of the track, calls it in. 2 up and 2 down in the top of the first.
His 4 keys to pitching success tonight. First one is a quote from him after his last start where he said, "I feel like I'm hitting my stride," and I think a lot of that has to do with confidence, feeling like he has earned a spot here, and he's got to pitch inside to make that off-speed stuff effective.
And no, the fans are not showing disagreement with Joe's 4 keys.
First time all year.
But they're all over Bryce Harper. And fans in Atlanta remember Bryce Harper against the Braves up in Washington just a few short days ago. So what carryover can we expect, if any, Tom Glavine, from Tehran versus Harper up at Nationals Park?
Well, I think you see something. I'd be surprised if you didn't, and you know, certainly with Tehran on the mound this weekend.
1 ball, 1 strike.
The fans certainly didn't forget it, so I'm pretty certain that the guys in the dugout didn't forget either.
That one over the inside corner. Harper's another Nat that has not done well against left-handed pitching. He's hitting .169 against them this year in 89 at bats. And Alex just missed the outside corner. 2-2.
Struggled the last part of their homestand too. Harper was just 3 for his last 22.
Two balls, 2 strikes. Might remember Harper's season may have changed in a game in Atlanta earlier this year when he slammed into the fence trying to catch Tim Hudson's home run ball. Harper hurt his knee on that play and has struggled through an injury-filled campaign since. Full count.
It's been an uphill battle for him, it seems, ever since that series.
Davey Johnson's not doing so well either. He's got a bad back. taken up a duel last week. As Harper smacks one down the left field line, and that's going to bounce safely and into the corner. And Bryce Harper, with 2 outs, has doubled for the first hit of the game tonight.
In case you missed it, up in Washington, D.C. at Nationals Park, after hitting a home run, he kind of walked it halfway to first base with a little backflip included, and it was crushed, no doubt about that. And the next time up, he got nailed. And started bad-mouthing Tehran, who certainly didn't shy away from him. Bryce had every opening he wanted if he wanted to really go out there, which he didn't.
So trouble for Alex Wood. For the Nationals' hottest hitter is up there, Jason Worth. Worth was the player of the month for July, and he comes in with a 7-game hitting streak tonight at a .331 Nationals batting average.
He's laying an early claim to getting those honors in August as well.
"17 homers, 49 knocked in for Worth this year. And a belt high strike inside corner has him in a 2-strike hole.
And that's a good spot for Alex to pitch all night to the right-handed hitters. Is pitch in, keep them honest, and then use his changeup, which has been outstanding.
Sorry, Joe. Especially Jason Worth. You get in hard above his hands. That's a spot you can get to with him.
You're right, Tom. August has been even better than July. We're only halfway through. Nats playing good ball. They've won 5 of their last 6, although 1 strike away from winning yesterday before the Giants got a 2-run homer. It ended up costing Washington the game. 1 ball, 2 strikes. That's fouled off Brian McCann's body. Worth still alive. If Worth reaches, Ian Desmond, our Delta Airlines on deck batter, will try to extend his hot streak.
Boy, he's been red hot too, hitting .311 overall for the month of August.
Pitch number 19 of the frame for Alex Wood. And it's bounced to the left side. Big hop. Chris Johnson has it, and a perfect peg retires the side. No runs, a hit. Bryce Harper left stranded at second. We head to the bottom of the first inning in Atlanta. .42 and 17. Yes, indeed, they are number 1 here in Atlanta. The Toyota starting lineup features Jason Hayward leading off, Justin Upton second in left, Freddie Freeman, Brian McCann, and Chris Johnson, the league's leading hitter. Jordan Schaefer gets the start in center field. Anderson Simmons at shortstop. Paul Janisch gets the start at second. And Alex Wood, as you saw, is pitching, and of course he'll hit ninth.
And they'll be facing the big 6'3" right-hander Taylor Jordan. You see his minor league numbers on the year in 14 starts. 9-1 record with a 1 ERA. That'll get you called up to the big leagues. And since he's been up here in the big leagues, 1-3 with a 4.1 ERA.
His 4 keys to pitching success. This guy has a very hard sinker, usually in the low 90s, but he can bump it up to 94, 95 if he needs to. Excellent slider and changeup, and as you watch his delivery, really wraps his arm back behind his body, hides the ball well, a little tough to pick up.
Hayward had no trouble. First pitch single.
I swear he's turned into Pee Wee Reese with power.
Pee Wee Reese?
He is getting on. He's getting singles. Yeah. Pee Wee Hayward. Golly, he's loving that spot in the order.
And has 13 hits in his last 26 at bats. Hayward's average cruising toward 260 now. And a chance for Atlanta to do what they've done a lot, score early and often. This trio, Hayward, Upton, and Freeman, have been devastating since Freddie lined him up that way. And a quick strike to Justin Upton has him behind. Justin with a .271 average, 22 homers, 61 driven in. He's worn out the Nationals this year.
Taylor Jordan had enough innings to qualify to be 4th in the league in ground ball percentage. Just under 70% of his outs from ground balls.
Yeah, that's a continuation of his numbers from the minor leagues as well. 77% of his outs in the minor leagues were via the ground ball. So that tells you a little bit of something about that sinker and the movement on it.
And Steve McCaddy, the Washington pitching coach. Their starters on a hot streak like the Braves starting 5 as well. And Upton fouled that off his body. He'll stay alive. 1 ball, 2 strikes.
Throws across his body a little bit, Tom, but that pitch seemed like it was even more exaggerated, stepping to the third base line.
Yeah, I don't know if he'll try to do that from time to time, either with a breaking ball or trying to get a little bit more sink on his sinker, depending on the count. If he's trying to get the ball to finish somewhere out of the strike zone, maybe for a strikeout. That's something we'll have to keep an eye on.
Justin trying to gather himself after the foul ball. Hayward has a good lead at first with nobody out.
See that cross the body and see how he gets his throwing hand so far back, kind of behind his head, and tries to hide the ball back there a little bit. The 2 guys out there tonight with good stuff that I guarantee a time or two in their careers, somebody's tried to change their mechanics on them a little bit and make them a little bit more conventional.
Person with the Nationals told me before the game tonight that a couple of times when he was pitching in Double-A, he actually knocked his own cap off from bringing his hand back behind his head, and then on his delivery knocked his hat off.
And the only other guy that came to mind when you mentioned that story before the game that pitches similarly is Josh Colmentor, the guy that throws out of the Arizona bullpen.
Throws the tomahawks.
2 balls, 2 strikes. And high. Let's see how the Braves play it with Freddie Freeman on deck. Full count.
This guy doesn't walk many people. Very low walk per 9 innings. 1.5 walks per 9 innings in his minor league work, and only 8 walks in 45 innings so far in the big leagues.
I say you send him.
He's going. And the pitch is low. Everybody's safe. Hayward's going to take off as the ball was thrown after ball 4. Thank you very much. Ramos looking at the home plate umpire like, what just happened? And what just happened was Hayward took off, Ramos threw through, the ball ended up in center field, and the Braves have him at the corners now with nobody out.
Many times, though, on a pitch that's close, this was a changeup. Catcher's not sure if it's a strike or not, so he feels compelled to throw just in case it was a strike, and he made a bad throw.
So it's a throwing error for Ramos, and here's Freddie Freeman. Here's an interesting matchup. You know Freeman loves to hit the first pitch. The opposition hitting .440 on the first pitch from Jordan. Let's see what happens here.
I like Freddie's chances.
Fouled away, strike 1.
Hayward singled on the first pitch, too. Excuse me, Pee-wee.
Tell you what, tomorrow before the game, let's all meet. We can go down and Joe can ask Jason if he likes that nickname.
I hit a leadoff home run the other night. You got to start calling him Ricky.
I said, yeah, but I said Pee-wee with power. Hayward, Henderson, yeah, that's a good combo, too.
I would not have labeled him as a leadoff hitter, and certainly not for this lineup, but I don't know what's happened, but it's worked for him, and it's sure been good for the lineup as well.
Yep.
20 runs in 18 games since moving to the #1 spot for Hayward. As Freeman now an 0-2 pitch. It's hit to second. That'll be a double play, but the Braves will get a run out of it. Hayward scores to make it 1-0. Upton forced at second. Freeman's out at first. No RBI, the penalty for hitting into the twin killing. So 21 runs now for Hayward as a leadoff hitter.
And Taylor Jordan got exactly what he needed there.
On strike to Braves catcher Brian McCann.
After the Braves went into Washington and swept them just a week or 10 days ago, really shut them down. The Nationals got hot offensively after that. Started swinging the bat a lot better, not so coincidentally.
That's to the right side, and Rendon makes the play, and that retires the side. Jason Hayward leads off with a hit, takes third on an error, and scores on a double play ball. Alex Wood has a 1-0 lead. top of the second inning. Tommy, you mentioned two pitchers with unorthodox deliveries tonight. Let's break down Alex Woods for the Braves.
Yeah, Alex Woods, it's kind of a combination of a couple things, but he starts out real well. Pretty simple there at the start of his delivery. Stays tall or tall on that back leg. But here's where things kind of change. For a lot of guys, what you're going to try and tell them is to stay tall. But you see how Alex kind of has that upper body bend forward. His head dips a little bit. But what he does a good job of is getting back to right there where he's out over his front leg. His throwing arm is up. And his head and shoulders or everything are going right towards his target. So it's that little bend forward, so to speak, with his upper body in the middle of his delivery. That's something I guarantee you some people have tried to change along the way.
If I hadn't seen that in slow motion, I would have bet that he doesn't get back up. That when you see him bend over so much, it looks like he stays there just watching him in live action.
Yeah, and it's it's unorthodox, but he throws strikes. He's comfortable with it. He's aggressive with it, and it's the kind of thing that, like I said, I'm sure as a kid somebody tried to change him, but now I think it's to his advantage because it's very unorthodox and you got a lot of moving parts, elbows and kneecaps coming at you, and it's tough for the hitter to figure out where the ball's coming from.
I've said he goes backwards and forwards at the same time.
At least he might.
Excellent, yeah.
1 ball, 2 strikes for shortstop Ian Desmond. He's a hot hitter for the Nats and a good player. He has 52 extra base hits this year as a shortstop. The shortstop has as many as 40. He's a real good offensive player.
Back to your point, Tom, about not changing him, or people may have tried earlier, but when Braves Hall of Fame scout Paul Snyder was asked to come look at him and evaluate him before the draft last year, he said, well, if you draft him, don't change him.
He gets a second strikeout of the night. Desmond's down swinging. 1 away for former Brave Adam LaRoche.
Well, if Mr. Snyder gives you the what's the word I'm looking for?
Edict?
The edict of not changing somebody, you better not change him. Because he's seen a few things in his day.
Adam LaRoche with 17 homers and 54 driven in. Last year, he had a gigantic season for the Nationals. He hit 33 bombs, drove in 100, and hit 271, and was a hot hitter from the opening bell. And we all know Adam has historically been a much better second half hitter. Some of the Nats got off to slow starts last season. LaRoche was the guy that really carried them into mid to late May.
He reverted back, though, this year, and it's been a big hole to climb out of. That's why he's only at 237.
That's outside, 3 balls and a strike.
You look at the Nationals last year and what they did in the year that they had. You look at the team that they brought in this year, and for so many people, they were the team that was expected to win the division. And to see where they are now really gives you an appreciation for what the Braves were able to do for so many years in winning their division title. I mean, it just goes to show you how hard it is from one year to the next, and especially when you start to have those expectations on you. It's tough to deal with.
I keep saying, Tom, that you hate to say never, but I can't imagine another organization putting together a run like that. It is too hard.
Yeah, there's not a lot of things. I'm with you that I jump to say, oh, that'll never happen again. I am about as close with that as I am anything in the game. I just don't see, for any host of reasons, a team rattling off that many division championships in a row again.
Well, that brings up an interesting question, because the manager of this Nationals club, Davey Johnson, as Ramos skies one into center field, that's drifting back deep. The Schaefer's got to play on it. Davey Johnson said it's World Series or bust. Right now it's been bust for Washington, and I'd love to get your thoughts after the break, Tommy, about the expectations that came with the Braves after the 1991 campaign.
particular pitch. And as he does, he continues to get more pitches in the zone, and he knows how to put the barrel on him once he does that.
It seems like every time you look up, Chris Johnson is getting a hit or coming through in two-out situation. 12 multi-hit games and a .356 average since the All-Star break. Earlier today, we asked assistant hitting coach Scott Fletcher on where he thought Chris Johnson had improved the most.
I've seen him grow a lot as far as covering pitches. You could see earlier in the year where there were pitches that he was chasing out of the zone, and Chris, he's learned how to cover those pitches, not chase them, and live to see another pitch. And as he does, he continues to get more pitches in the zone, and he knows how to put the barrel on him once he does that.
I'll say he leads the league in hitting at .337, and Chris Johnson's multi-hit game work is our Academy Sports and Outdoor leaderboard.
Tied with Jason Worth and Martin Prado for 12. Good second half going for Martin. Andrew McCutcheon one more than those three guys.
Not bad for a throw-in, huh?
Not bad.
Chris Johnson takes outside from Taylor Jordan. 1 ball, no strikes. They scored their run in the first inning. Leadoff hit by Hayward. He was running after Upton walked. The throw sailed into center field, and he scored on a double play. 1 ball, 1 strike. And Johnson singles to start the second inning.
The one thing to me, guys, that has been just kind of a hallmark for him all season long, though, is that he hits the ball where it's pitched. That ball appeared to be up a little bit. But again, this guy throws across his body. Might have even been a slider, a short slider there that he just stayed with and hit it where it was pitched.
Yeah, he really seems to be kind of the epitome of that guy that, and I know a lot of guys try to do it, but just really keeps it simple in the batter's box, and it has simple mechanics to his swing. But then when he gets a pitch, he doesn't try to do too much with it. And I mean, like I said, he's just really perfected that.
We showed him the other night, Tom, how early he gets his front foot down, and then as long as he doesn't let his upper body sway forward and stays back in a relatively strong position, he makes contact. He's tough to fool. You might get one by him once in a while upstairs with a fastball, but he's quick with his hands.
2 balls, no strikes for Jordan Schaefer. What a year for Jordan Schaefer, who was let go by the Astros last year. Got a second chance with the Braves, and boy, has he taken advantage of it in a big way.
Well, again, that just goes to show you sometimes that change of scenery or the second go around with a club, because I know there was people out there saying that this guy got released by the Astros. What's he going to do with the Braves? But he's taken that second opportunity here in Atlanta and made the most of it.
Liner to third. Zimmerman's throw back to first is going to be in time. Johnson thought he got back to the bag, but he's doubled up. The Braves have hit the 2 double plays in as many innings.
Might be a good time for a replay. I'd throw the flag right there, maybe.
Yeah. I think we all know about Ryan Zimmerman's throwing problems, but the fact that he looked like about the edge of the grass, yeah. A little shorter throw, and he got that one across there in good shape.
Marvin Hudson rings up Chris. 2 outs. So Tommy, 1991, the Braves go from worst to first, get to the World Series in fall. I don't recall what the expectations were for the '92 team. Were they as high or higher?
They were for us. I think around town, around baseball, there were still some skepticism as to what we really were. But I think for us going back to spring training, yeah, our expectations were to get back to the World Series and win it. You know, it didn't happen, but you know, I think for us internally, that became our belief and our mindset year after year was, you know what, we're going to win our division, we're going to win a World Series.
Did that mindset come about right after the '91 season or during it, or was that something that had to build as you continue to have success? My point being, Washington has not been a real good club, and last year they broke out with 98 wins.
Right. No, we can't. We went into spring training that next year, and it was our expectation that we were going to win our division and we were going to get back to the World Series. Now, again, you know, that's everybody's goal every year to a certain extent, but I think we had proven to ourselves that we were capable and we wanted to do it again.
You guys were a young team, a lot of young pitchers certainly. Had good leadership from Terry and Belliard and Green, as we've all talked about so much for that '91 season. But it would have been easy to go to spring training saying, hey, well, that was fun. I don't know if we can do it again, but you know, that was a fun ride.
Oh, absolutely it would have been. But I think, you know, that was the beauty of that team and that mindset.
Swing and a miss. Simmons is down on strikes. And that ends inning number 2. Braves president John Schuerholz is going to come by in a moment. Instant replays on everybody's mind. And John has a lot to say about that. Around Major League Baseball is a major change to baseball's replay system. And we could spend all night talking about all of these points that you see on the screen, but who better to ask than the man that was one of the chief architects of all these changes and on the baseball committee, Braves president John Schuerholz. First of all, Mr. President, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
And secondly, tell us what's new and proposed for next season in replay.
Well, what is proposed pending negotiations with the Players Association and the Umpires Association, which we are hopeful and think that they will be most supportive of, is a instant replay system that will be a manager challenge system that provides managers with three challenges throughout the game. One in innings 1 through 6, and another 2 innings 7 through the end of the game. First time in the history of baseball, managers have had an opportunity to have their piece and have some impact on the outcome of a call. If the umpire got it wrong and the manager saw it, or someone reminded him that the umpire got it wrong, he can challenge it. It could be overturned, and the manager is right. He saves his challenge. What we tried to do is to greatly reduce the number of incorrect calls that impact the outcome of our games, and at the same time try to protect the flow and the rhythm and the charm of our great game. And I think with this process we've put in place, we've done that.
No balls and a strike to Taylor Jordan. He's going to try to bunt again, and he gets it down. It's a hard bunt. Wood thought about second. Well, it takes the sure out at first, and the second is Rendon with 1 out.
John, did I understand correctly that it's not going to be something like what we see now with all the umpires leaving the field to to check out an appeal maybe on a home run, but maybe one umpire leaves to go get on the phone or something?
Yeah, it'll be either home plate umpire or the crew chief. Likely the home plate umpire because he's closer to where there will be a direct line phone link up in every ballpark near a camera bay just off the backstop, and he'll pick up the phone. It will immediately connect him to BAM headquarters in New York, and there will be umpires there and technicians there who can queue up the play. The umpire here at the ballpark, let's say, for instance, Turner Field says there's a disputed call at second base at Turner Field in the bottom of the second inning, and they can queue that play up almost instantaneously, look at it in various angles. By the way, there will be more feeds coming out of every ballpark because they're just going to increase the feeds they're sending so that the umpires will have more angles to view, and they'll be able to determine whether or not the umpire made the call correctly or incorrectly. And the umpire in New York looking at the replay will have the final say on whether the play is held up by the umpire's call or overturned by the manager's challenge.
How does that impact the fans in the stadiums with all the high definition scoreboards that we have now, John? I know even up till now, no close calls are shown on replays in the stadium so that the fans can watch. Is there any process or mechanism in place to allow the fans to see what's being reviewed? And like at Wimbledon on a foul ball call where you see the ball hit the white line on a service ace, is that something that's been talked about or discussed?
First off, close plays can be shown. What can't be shown are obvious misses by the umpire. We can't show that. Every team in baseball advised of that. So that's the way we use it. Eventually that may happen. We've talked about that in committee about showing the replay or showing the play while it is in replay, while it's being considered. And that may happen. Whether it happens in 14 or not, we don't know. Everybody in the ballpark's got a mobile phone. They're likely going to be watching it on their mobile phone or some mobile device. Up in the stands, they see it. So I think our fans will be more attuned to what's happening than they've ever before been. But most importantly, the game incorrect calls will be diminished in their impact on the outcome of a game, and that's what we're shooting for.
So what's the procedure now? Say, for instance, last inning, line drive, Zimmerman throws across the first, double play, close play. If Freddie wanted to challenge that, is there a certain amount of time he has to get out there? I guess the point I'm getting at, because you see it happen in the NFL all the time, where those guys are waiting for somebody upstairs to say, hey, the replay showed you want to challenge that. How's that all going to play out?
Before the next pitch is thrown.
Okay.
Before that, the manager has to offer his challenge. And if it's a play that ends the inning, and the teams exchange positions on the field before the first pitch in the next half inning is thrown, the manager has to offer his challenge. So he does have some time. And if a pitcher thinks the play went badly against his team in the field on defense, and he gets the ball back on the mound and he gets up there and all of a sudden, bing bang boom, he throws a pitch, then the manager sort of lost his opportunity. So the manager has to be on his toes. And the bench coaches will be involved, I'm sure, and there will be some opportunity for for that to happen. He'll have eyes and ears helping him decide. And with three of them, our data is that one missed call per every 5 games played is what the ratio has been in games that we've studied in the past. One missed call.
It's not many.
In every 5 games that's not many. So therefore. With three challenges in a manager's pocket, that ought to be more than enough for him to battle the battles that are meaningful in a game, impactful plays, scoring plays, whatever the plays may be that may be game changing. He'll have an opportunity. Never before in the history of the game has he had that opportunity.
One appeal the first 6 innings.
Correct.
2 appeals, you said a minute ago, from the 7th inning to the conclusion of the game.
To the end of the game.
And does that include extra innings?
It does.
So if you use 2, 1 in the 7th and 1 in the 8th, and game goes 15 innings, you're done.
You better hope
you're done after the 8th.
You need not worry about making any challenges on plays.
Okay.
Baseball traditionalists that you are, Joe Torre and Tony La Russa, I can only imagine the number of hours you all spent discussing these potential changes to the game. Has this been a mind shift for you and for the traditionalists in our game? And how do you think they're reacting to that?
Well, I am a traditionalist, and I love our pure game. But I'm also a realist, and modern technology is in our face. It's in our lap. It's all around us. We all have modern technology on us, and every one of our fans has become used to it. So what we're trying to do is to blend the beauty and the uniqueness of our great game with modern technology and eliminate, or not eliminate, but to greatly reduce the number of incorrect calls that impact our game. And we think that we will do that. This is, remember, only the first rollout, the first phase of this. After 2014, we will look at what happened well, what worked, what didn't work, what we should adjust, what we should continue, what we should discontinue, and make it better for 2015. And I think in a period of about 3 years, we could get the number of incorrect calls that impact games down to a very, very de minimis number, almost imperceptible. It won't, you barely notice that an incorrect call changed the outcome of a game. I think that can happen. I think it will happen.
One of the things that I know is big on Chip's mind, and I'll just speak for him, but if there were cameras located, for example, on the foul poles, aimed down the fence line for disputed home run calls, that would save a lot of time too. You were talking about new vantage points for camera angles. That might be one place to start.
Well, I mean, that may be looked at, but right now what we were trying to do mostly, we're trying to do all that we can, but we can't do it all in one fell swoop. We're going to move into this. We're going to move in this in a measured fashion, and this is a great start, and we're going to keep working at it until we get it where it ought to be.
Ryan Zimmerman wants automated strike zone calls. That one went Alex Wood's way, and he's happy to have it. John, thanks so much. Look forward to the replay rollout. The top half of the inning with us talking about the changes in instant replay, and I think the thing that struck most for me was, yeah, there are traditionalists in the game, but with technology you might as well use it to your advantage instead of sticking your head in the sand.
Yeah, and that's kind of, we ran out of time, but I kind of wanted to ask him in that regard. Was it more that they felt like there was a need for this, or that the technology has gotten such that they can integrate it in the game without it becoming a distraction to the game? So it'll be interesting.
How about the Batman, Paul Janisch?
Red hot. Well, I'm not answering for him, Tom, but one of the things I would guess that kind of helped drive this was because of the great technology that's out there. Too many times it's being shown that the call was wrong.
Right.
And the efforts to try to fix those mistakes drove it.
And it's like everything. I think we all agree that for the most part, the umpires are pretty good, and they get it right most of the time. But when they do get it wrong, most recently maybe the Red Sox play at home plate in that game, it gets so much attention that I could see where they would want to do everything they could to try and eliminate something like that being the outcome of it.
Go back a couple of years to a perfect game that was lost because of a missed call at first.
World Series, Kansas City and St. Louis. I mean, ultimately, as players, you worry about the flow of the game.
Sure.
You worry about the outcome of the game. But at the end of the day, you just want to get the call right.
Well, and that's right. And if a call changes and it's ultimately the right call and that leads to the outcome of the game, well, then too bad. The right call was made, and the outcome of the game ends up hopefully being what it should have been. But yeah, I mean, I think the biggest concern, at least for me, with my player hat on, is how does it affect the flow of the game? And I think that's a big concern for Major League Baseball as well.
It's been said that perhaps, it would affect a pitcher on the mound if he's got to stand out there and wait a minute and a half to 2 minutes waiting to find out the outcome. But the flip side of that is that it may be a call that goes in his favor.
Sure.
And he's willing to wait for the outcome if it helps him.
You got to wait a couple extra seconds to have 2 outs and nobody on versus first and second and nobody out.
Mm-hmm.
I'll wait.
1 ball, 2 strikes. Wood can't get the bunt down, slams his bat down, might have broken it. And we asked Braves third baseman Chris Johnson about the pace of the game issue that comes with more than boundary call replays in the game of baseball.
I was listening to a little bit yesterday as I was laying on the couch, and they said that 3 replays, I think, for each team, something like that. And then they said that the average time for replays this year was like 3.5 minutes. So my concern would be the timing about it all, because if you have 3 replays per team, that's 6 replays at 3 minutes apiece. It's kind of a lot of time for fans. I know fans. There's some people out there who don't watch baseball a lot because they think it's too slow. So I think the speed of the game should try to speed up. Hopefully we can speed up the replay process. Hopefully if they do end up doing that, but. I just work here, so whatever they say goes, I guess.
That's certainly true as Hayward hits for Atlanta. I think, though, that personally, as a fan, people who complain about time of games are people whose deadlines are affected by a long game. I believe that's a big part of it. But if you involve the fans by showing them what's being discussed and then have a quick explanation like they do in the NFL, I think people will be entertained by that. Jim McKean, former Major League umpire, who's now one of the umpire supervisors, was on MLB radio today, and he said the thing that he doesn't like about the current system is the umpires leave the field and there's nothing on the board showing the replay. So fans that sit in the ballpark have no idea what's being discussed or what angle is being seen.
Right, and it sounds like that way of doing things is not going to be the way. It's like they're kind of set up for replay now, but they're really kind of not. And everybody's going to go off the field, and it takes a while. It seems like they're going to be a lot more plugged in and ready to do it and do it quickly and get a solution as quickly as possible.
Yeah, I read a line or a quote from John Schuerholz, and I think I actually heard him say it earlier today that time that Chris was concerned about. 3 minutes plus currently would be cut in half, that because the home plate umpire, as John said, could go back to a phone or something near the screen, it could be a minute 15, a minute 30, and cut that time in half because of the direct contact.
2-2 for Hayward, and he lines another one over short. Right now, fellas, he is as dangerous as they come at the plate. He is line to line and hitting everything right on the button.
One of the things the Braves have been doing really well over this good stretch of games is that they've been doing the little things right. Alex Wood wasn't able to get the bunt down. Otherwise, this is an RBI single. And this guy's, I'm sure he's tough to bunt on. But the fact that Alex couldn't get it down cost himself a run.
Yeah, one last point for me then on replay too is I think that as they get this thing plugged in, I think the guys that are reviewing plays in New York are going to get a feel for plays that are going to be reviewed, and they're probably going to already be replaying close plays before they ever get on the phone with an umpire, and it's an official, what's the word I'm looking for, challenge, so to speak. So I think that will cut down a lot of it in terms of the time of it as well.
So bottom line, you guys pro or con?
Yeah, I applaud it.
I like it. I think the time is right, and like John said, the technology is here. We ought to be using it.
So that's something else to look forward to in 2014. As Upton didn't like that call. Balls and strikes are apparently not going to be reviewable, and that was a question I was going to ask John. There were some again on the radio today, so why not have an automated strike zone?
It'll happen. I bet it happens in our lifetime.
Deep short. Desmond to second one. Rendon throws it away. Giannis streaks down the line from third, and he will score without a throw. Pee Wee Hayward came barreling in at second, and Rendon's throw was off the mark. And the Braves get that second run here in the third inning.
As slow as that developed with Desmond having to go to his backhand, I'm sure Hayward was all over Rendon at second base. I don't know if he caused the bad throw or not, but he had to be close to him. Oh yeah, he had backed up halfway into right center field to get out of the way.
That's another area that's been a real nightmare for Washington this year, fellas. That's their 82nd error. And for Rendon, his 14th in only 66 games. That's a lot. Nationals 11th in the league in errors. Now down 2-0 with Freddie Freeman up there. He hit into a double play his first time.
Boy, tough luck for Tyler Passernicky today. I went in to see him, and he's trying to keep a stiff upper lip, but tough break for him. He's going to be out for the year with a torn ACL. He's going to require surgery just at a time when he was going to get an opportunity to get some everyday at bats at the big league level. And that's a tough one to take. Yet another Braves position player out for the year too, a middle infielder.
Yeah, I think you understand that injuries are a part of the game, but there's always some that are a little bit tougher to swallow than others, and that's one of those ones that's you hate to see.
But as you know, the game continues on, and one man's misfortune is another man's opportunity, and the Braves called up Phil Gosselin from the minor leagues. 5th round pick back in 2010 out of the University of Virginia. And so he's in uniform tonight. And he and Evan Gattis talking it up on the Braves dugout bench.
Well, Evan, of course, the old grizzled veteran rookie. This was the play. Jason was calling it all the way. His teammates heard him calling it. Everybody, that is, except Tyler, who certainly wouldn't have been standing there in Jason's way if he had known that Hayward called it.
Full count. Upton will be running. LaRoche plays behind him at first. That's fouled off the catcher's body. We'll do it again. Yeah, the middle infield's taking a beating. Pena's out with shoulder surgery, done for the year. Dan Uggla apparently had his LASIK surgery yesterday or today. Haven't heard the results of that. And Tyler Passernicky.
Blake DeWitt.
Downstairs. Field to third. No swing. Upton at second. Freeman at first. And Brian McCann will hit with 2 outs.
Blake DeWitt out with a bad back too. He's been out since early in the season.
2 on with 2 outs. And all season long, Braves baseball on Fox Sports South is being presented by Academy Sports and Outdoors. The right stuff for low price every day. Steve McCanny will make his first visit to the mound tonight.
And I'm sure one of the things he would probably like to impart to him is, you know, you've given up 2 unearned runs 2 errors already made behind you tonight, but don't make it worse by starting to walk guys. Let's get a restart here. Jordan actually, talk about a draft. They got Strasburg and Drew Storen in the first round in 09. They got this guy in the 9th round in the same draft.
Yeah, that was a very productive draft year for the Nationals.
Three big games this weekend against the Nationals. If the Braves get 3 big crowds, they're going to go over 2 million in attendance at the conclusion of this homestand. And we hope you'll make your plans to join us tomorrow night and then again Sunday. Ball 1 to Brian McCann. Bryant turned it loose and couldn't catch it. 1 ball, 2 strikes now. They have pitched him tough.
Hard to believe Brian's been in the big leagues 8 years.
1 ball, 2 strikes now.
If you told me 4 years, even 5, I'd buy that. But it's hard to think that he's already been here 8 full years.
Yeah, the baby Braves are babies no more. Ground ball right side. LaRoche scoops it up, and he'll win the race to the bag. The Braves have beaten the Nationals 10 out of 13 times this year, and the first 3 innings of that are a replay again. 2-0 Atlanta. We go to the 4th. I'm going to have my alarm clock set. 6 a.m. Eastern Time. It's the debut of Fox Sports 1, America's new 24-hour sports network. It'll be your home for great live sports. All the news and highlights you want, the shows and specials that only Fox can bring you. America's new sports network is Fox Sports 1. It all begins tomorrow at 6 a.m. Eastern Time.
Luis Ayala will take that back to Los Mochis, Mexico, and he'll be #1 in the city. He'll be running for mayor.
Alan Butts saying that's where the Bulldogs are going to be ranked after they play Clemson.
Is that Eric O'Flaherty out there?
I think so.
Paying a visit in uniform. He just couldn't stand to stay away, could he? Yep, there he is.
Bryce Harper's not going to run for mayor anytime soon, is he? In Atlanta.
Not here.
Whoa, up and in. A breaking ball hits Bryce Harper, and he puts his head down and jogs to first.
Fans are excited, but that was total accident. Breaking ball, 2-0 lead. Don't want to get the leadoff man on.
Especially with the troubles Harper has had hitting lefties, his double tonight notwithstanding.
And this part of the order.
Yeah, you're not going to put guys on ahead of these two guys. That would not be a part of the game plan.
No.
Not as hot as Worth has been. 7-game hitting streak, 14 for his last 28. And a .330 average and a close play as Harper scrambles back to first. A little low, 1 ball, no strikes. Maybe one of the most surprising stats about this Washington club, fellas, is the lack of offensive production that this team has endured this year. And it's hard to believe that a team that has Harper, Zimmerman, Span, Desmond, Worth, and LaRoche has scored 2 runs or fewer in 52 of their games this year.
Well, it's obviously a big part of the reason why they've had the season they've had, but I agree with you. You would have never thought that coming in, and what are they? The only team that's done that more times than them is the Marlins. So, that tells you the struggles that their offense has had.
Braves have held them to 3 runs or less in 12 straight games.
2 balls and a strike for Worth. And he drives that ball foul.
Here's some of the numbers on some of their key guys in the lineup and how poorly they've hit against the Braves this year. Ryan Zimmerman, a .139, Harper 152, Jason Worth 1 extra base hit. That's unbelievable. And Adam LaRoche just a .200 average against Atlanta. Jason Worth has trimmed up a little bit since that photo was taken.
Well, that's because Duck Dynasty premiered the other night. New season.
Set a record, right, for the amount of viewers for a nonfiction show. I think I heard on the news this morning.
I got reeled into Honey Boo Boo the other night.
Oh my goodness! I've just lost all respect for you. How you could get reeled into that?
I lost a lot of respect for myself.
Speaking of fiction.
2 balls, 2 strikes. I'm sure we've all had those moments where you think that's 10 minutes of my life I can never get back.
10 minutes?
That's all.
You lasted that long?
Yeah. Well, I didn't have the remote. That's my excuse. 2 balls, 2 strikes. And Worth pulls it foul.
Who forced you to watch it?
My buddy Jim Hazelwood, who loves that show.
Man, oh man.
Had to leave the room.
I really lost even more respect for you.
I hope
you told me you snuck home on the off day and you watched it, watched it with your wife.
Oh, no,
she made you watch it. That would have been one thing.
2 balls, 2 strikes. Line into center by Worth. And Harper around second aggressively moves up an extra 90 feet. He can really run the bases, can't he? And Washington has runners at first and third with nobody out.
That's why he didn't want to hit Harper. That was unintentional because you're trying to stay out of a big inning. This was good base running, Chip, because Jordan Schaefer had to go to his right to cut it off, and he really wasn't in a good position to come up throwing. He had to make sure the ball didn't get by him first.
Yeah, we talk about guys really getting a double out of the batter's box. They have that mindset there's going to be a double. He had that mindset on that base hit that he was going first to third, and that's the only way he was going to be able to get there, was to have that aggressiveness and that good base running.
Well, a strikeout here sure would be nice. Wood did that to Desmond back in the second inning. Ian's been a good RBI man all year long. He's got 57 of them. That's most of any national in tonight's lineup. Double play ball. There's one. Yadish the turn. Double play. Harper scores. That cuts the lead in half, and it's a 2-1 score in the fourth inning. So we've had 2 runs score on double play balls in the game tonight. One by the Braves, one by Washington.
Both young pitchers, a little bit of a jam, and able to make the pitch they need to make, get the ground ball, get the double play, and gladly take the 2 outs and give up the run. Stay out of that big inning.
A strike to LaRoche. 0-1. Well, what a refreshing night at the ballpark. Usually at this time of year it's hot and muggy. First pitch temperature 67 degrees, and we've had a pretty strong breeze blowing toward the left field corner all night long tonight.
I think it's helped knock down a couple of fly balls to center early on by the Nationals, too.
Even count, 2 balls, 2 strikes. We're in the fourth. Braves have scored in the first and the third inning. Washington scored just a moment ago on a double play ball by Ian Desmond. And now Alex has missed with 3 in a row. Big breaking ball. LaRoche wasn't looking for that. Alex Wood has struck out 5 Nationals. He's allowed 1 run tonight, but he leads by 1 as his offense goes back to work in the fourth inning. summary.
Alex Wood gave up a run on a double play ball after he hit Bryce Harper that got him going in the top of the 4th inning. Taylor Jordan, 2 unearned runs. Errors by the catcher and the second baseman have cost him a couple of runs tonight. Jason Hayward off to a good start with 2 hits and a run scored.
Let's get the run right back. Chris Johnson goes to work. He singled to start the second. He's hitting .339 now for the year. Yadier Molina at .325 for the Cardinals. Michael Cuddyer at .324 for the Rockies. Joey Votto at .320. Those are the men chasing Chris for the National League batting title. Don't know if Yadier Molina played today for the Cardinals. If he didn't, they could have used him. The Cubs shut out St. Louis 7-0 at Wrigley Field today.
Is that Samardzija?
I'll check for you. Fly ball to right. Worth takes a roundabout route. And he makes the play for out number 1. Let's see. Westbrook and Jake Arrieta scheduled in Chicago. Hope you'll celebrate Family Sundays with the Braves. Joe, meet former Braves legends at Alumni Sundays. Take part in Kids Run the Bases after the game as well. Fans can also get up to 36% off gate price with tickets starting as low as $10. Go to braves.com/Sunday.
Cardinals are leaking oil a little bit, aren't they?
They are indeed. And the Reds are beginning to pick up the pace. They're leading tonight early in Milwaukee, but the Reds have won 5 in a row.
Yeah, if the Reds win tonight, they'll leapfrog past St. Louis for the number 1 wild card spot. Arizona's 6 back. Washington's 9.5 back. One ball, 1 strike. Jordan Schaefer lined into a double play his first time up. Chris Jordan's throwing pretty hard. The clock on that pitch was 95 on the scoreboard.
He's got good stuff. Gonna let it all out. This is his last start of the year, so no reason to leave anything out there.
Yeah, they're going to shut him down, aren't they?
Yeah, they are. I think he had 137 or so innings coming into the game combined between the big leagues and the minor leagues, and this is it for him.
What a throw, though. This kid started at Potomac.
Yeah.
A-ball. Now pitching for the Nationals against the first place Braves in mid-August. He lost Schaefer. 1 on and 1 out.
On the DirecTV wild card standings, it's easy to see why these games are so important to the Washington Nationals. They are 9.5 back from one of the 2 wild card spots. Reds and Cardinals tied right now, pending the outcome of the Reds game tonight. They got a long way to go, the Nationals do, to have any thought of getting in as a wild card.
They're gonna have to go on a streak like the Braves did or something like that to even have a chance to get back in it.
Base hit to left by Simmons with 1 out. Schaefer stops at second. Paul Janisch will stand in.
One of the comforting things for the Cardinals right now, though, Tommy, is that despite the fact they've been playing poorly, they got a big cushion for their spot in the wild card ahead of Arizona at 6 games.
The Braves have an interest in what Arizona's doing tonight. They're playing the Pirates. Atlanta's neck and neck with Pittsburgh for the best record in baseball. Dodgers not that far behind either, only 3.5 behind Atlanta for that honor. And the Pirates have just taken a 4-2 lead over Arizona in the 5th at PNC Park.
Yeah, you forget that best record aspect of this sometimes, and you know, you hear some fans talking sometimes, well, with this big lead, what keeps the Braves interested? What keeps them going? Well, it's that home field advantage, because trust me, as good as this team has been at home, they want that home field advantage.
The record right now, 42-17 at home.
There you see the best records.
Dodgers, what was it? They've won 40 out of 48. So.
Ground ball deep short by Giannis. Rendon will have an easier time turning this one, and he does. And that retires the side. Well, Jordan gets the ball on the ground. He's done that 3 times in this game. 3 double plays by the Atlanta offense through 4 innings. It's 2-1 Braves. You from Turner Field. Big crowd watching the Braves and Nats play in Game 1 of the series. And it's time for our AT&T U-verse trivia question. I think Gretchen's in a vindictive mood tonight. We've had a hot streak going, Tommy. So let's check the toughness of the question. Adam LaRoche, one of 2 National League infielders with a Gold Glove and Silver Slugger last year. Who was the other to win the Gold Glove and the Silver Slugger?
Are catchers considered infielders? They are. Okay.
Is your guess Wilson Ramos? Because he's leading off.
No, I was thinking about Yadier Molina. I know he won a Gold Glove. He may have won both, since we were just talking about him.
Ramos has had a season full of hamstring problems. But in there tonight on a cool evening, 1 ball, 2 strikes. And that'll bounce into the seats. Nice catch by a fan beyond the Washington on deck circle. That's hammered down the left field line, and it'll hop into the corner. Nice play by Upton, and it's a long single for Ramos.
Terrific play by Justin. Timed that perfectly on the short hop. What a difference Ramos means to their lineup if they can just keep him in the lineup. Got the ball barehanded off the wall. Turned and fired.
Rendon swung early in the count and singled. That led off the third inning for the Nationals. This kid might be their third baseman of the future. Joe mentioned the throwing problems that Ryan Zimmerman has had at third base. He's playing second because Danny Espinosa just forgot how to hit this year. It's been a lost year for him. He's down at AAA. The problem with moving these Nationals around on the infield is complicated by the fact that Adam LaRoche has another year on his contract. And the logical thing would be put Zimmerman at first so he doesn't have to make the long throws across the infield. Rendon, a .266 hitter with 24 runs batted in. Couldn't pull the trigger and now has a 2-2 count.
Talked about Ramos being out for a couple of days with a tender hamstring again. He was on the DL with that hamstring before, so no reason to hold him on at first base. Wouldn't expect him to try and run, so Freddie Freeman can play behind him.
Pitches are piling up for Alex over the last 2+ innings.
Leadoff man's been on each of the last 3 innings. That's part of that.
Yeah, been a little bit deeper and a few more counts here of late as well.
3-2, and with a hole on the right side, Rendon filled it nicely. So the second straight inning, the Nationals have their first 2 runners aboard.
Another example right there of hitting the ball where it's pitched. 3-2 count. You know you got that hole over there. Looking for a fastball. You got it away, and just a nice swing. Put that ball right in the hole. Base hit.
He's a little younger than Paul Janisch, who played at Rice, but Rendon also played at Rice and was a first-round pick by the Nationals in 2011.
Jordan got a sacrifice in the third inning. He'd love to lay another one down here. There's the bunt, and it's perfect. Sacrifice is good. Runners second and third, 1 out for the top of the order. And now the top of the order, Denard Span, who has struck out twice.
The guy on deck's hitting .325 with runners in scoring position. So you'd like the luxury if you can get Span of pitching carefully to Zimmerman if you have to.
But behind him is Harper. So Wood in some trouble with a 2-1 lead, but gets ahead of Span, strike 1.
Yeah, you got 3 guys to try and get 2 outs, and 2 of those guys happen to be left-handers, so you can take advantage of those 2 spots in the lineup. It's a good opportunity to try and do it.
Inside corner, 0-2.
Again, pitching inside sets up everything else. You got Span to take a called third strike on the outside corner in the first inning. And completely locked up LaRoche last inning. on a 3-2 count with a hook.
Struck him out on 3 pitches.
I like what he did there. He kind of went against the grain a little bit. 9 times out of 10, when you go hard in, the next pitch is soft away, and I think he might have been guessing along with Span a little bit and decided to mix up that scenario a little bit and went hard again away and threw the fastball right by him.
Sure did. Bernard was late on that.
When we saw the Nationals, Davey Johnson shook up his lineup and put Zimmerman in the 2 spot. It was the first time he'd ever hit there. It has not been a productive spot for him so far. He came into tonight's game hitting a .185 in front of Harper and in the 2-hole. Slow roller right side. Wood is out of it. Wow. He struck out Span. He got Zimmerman to roll out with runners at 2nd and 3rd in the 5th. He leads things off and he leads the game 2-1. Two-one game. Braves coming up for the bottom of the 5th inning, and we invite you to be a part of history as the Braves pay tribute to one of their greats. It's Spotlight, the Chipper Jones Braves Hall of Fame salute, tonight at 11:30 only on Fox Sports South. Big day around Major League Baseball today, and a big day within the division. And I think pretty surprising news and certainly sad news. Charlie Manuel was let go by the Phillies today.
That's a real bummer.
Charlie, the all-time winningest manager in Phillies history, picked up his 1,000th win in this ballpark the other day. And will not finish out the season. Great play by Rendon to retire Alex Wood.
The other night, after his 1,000th win, presented a base from the game by Carlos Ruiz. Depot tools from the dugout, the longest tenured NL East managers. How about Freddie Gonzalez, number 1?
I don't know that I'd have guessed that, but that's the landscape of the division right now.
Freddie was asked about that before the game. What do you think? You're the longest tenured guy in the East. He said, yeah, that and $2 will get me a cup of coffee. I didn't see the video of it today, but I heard it driving in. Ruben Amaro, the general manager of the Phillies, who along with Charlie Manuel, was the architect of those terrific Phillies teams, was really choked up when he announced that Charlie Manuel's tenure was coming to an end today. And Ryne Sandberg, the Hall of Famer and former Cub, was named the interim manager today. As Hayward rolls to first, that's the second out.
Well, it would all had been long speculated that Sandberg would be the manager in waiting, and just a shame that Charlie wasn't able to finish the season. I hope they find a place for him within the organization unless he gets an opportunity to go manage somewhere else. I guess it'll be kind of a test run for Ryne Sandberg.
Upton takes low, 1 ball, no strikes. If memory serves, Ryne Sandberg was originally a Phillies farmhand, and the Cubs acquired him
for Ivan De Jesus.
Toward third and through. Upton has a hit. He's aboard for the third time in the game, and now has a 4-game hitting streak. And he's part of our Wendy's Now That's Better feature.
Well, he was with the Diamondbacks, 30 games, just almost 12 RBIs this year, 3 and 7. And check out the last 4 games, 11 for 16 coming into tonight's play. Had a great series against them up in D.C. That was odd.
A little brain cramp. He forgot there was a runner on. He was pitching out of the windup.
And now he wants time and wants to talk it over with Ramos,
who's not all that excited about going out there.
My legs hurt. What do you want? Also, while we have a moment, I want to pass along get well wishes to Cardinals broadcaster Mike Shannon. He's under the weather. He's going to miss the next few games for the Redbirds. Hopefully he'll be back behind the mic when we head to St. Louis next weekend. Thursday through Sunday we'll play the Redbirds. Foul at the plate, no balls and a strike.
One of the things after that meeting between the manager or the pitcher and catcher was that Ramos came back, got some chalk on his fingers. It could have been part of the problem, was Jordan's inability to see the signs.
LaRoche has that skip off his glove, and that'll bounce into shallow right field. Everybody is safe. Washington already has 2 errors in the game. We'll see how this one's scored.
Adam made a couple of errors, as I recall, up in Washington, too, that were uncharacteristic. This was a little bit of an in-between hop that came up, hit him in the forearm, and went all the way out into right field.
Yeah, that picked up some speed as it went up his forearm.
It is an error. LaRoche's 8th this season. And now McCann with 2 outs. Swings the first pitch and rolls it to Rendon. And the flip to second retires the side. No runs, a hit, an error, 2 left. And now we head to the 6th inning. Part of the Nationals order is up, with Atlanta up 2-1. Braves lead the Nationals 2-1. And fellas, we figure to see more of the same tomorrow. Two excellent pitchers go at it in Game 2 of this series. Mike Minor and Steven Strasburg. Those are our Chevron probable starters tomorrow.
Yeah, that'll be a good matchup tomorrow. Mike Minor been throwing the ball real well for the Braves, 12-5 on the year. Strasburg's 6-9. Record's probably not as good as it should be with the way he's pitched, but always seems to have a lid or some kind of issue or problem here in Atlanta. So it'll be interesting to see how he does tomorrow night. Maybe he ordered the cool weather for tomorrow night.
Strasburg in 5 starts here, 1-2, with a 5.24 earned run average.
I have thoroughly enjoyed watching Mike Minor's progress and watching him grow up on the mound over the course of the season, and fun to watch.
Those two guys hooked up August 5th in Washington. Braves won the game 3-2, but neither one figured in the decision. Here's got a home run from Justin Upton in the 8th. It was off Tyler Clippard, though. But they hooked up in a great ball game, a 2-2 tie through 7.
A ball and 2 strikes to Harper, who's doubled and has been hit by a pitch and has scored the only Nationals run.
This guy said in the paper, in the quotes in the paper after the game the other day, Tommy, about how I feel like I'm hitting my stride. He's making a believer out of me.
No, I 100% agree with you, and I think it's a combination of getting the opportunity to get out there a little bit more consistently and taking that opportunity and figuring out what he's capable of doing.
Swing and a miss. Harper is down, and that's 7 strikeouts for Wood, which matches a career high.
Got 3 good weapons though, and they're all good pitches. They're all good big league pitches.
They are, and he struck Bryce Harper out right there in a pitch that 10 years ago you weren't allowed to throw. Lefty on lefty, change up, down and in the zone. See a young kid have the confidence to do that, knowing that you're going into a danger zone, but you're gonna make a pitch that's gonna beat him in that zone. That shows you the confidence he has. Probably dated. I probably was being kind. It was probably more like 15 years ago you weren't allowed to do that.
And it took you a while in your career to make that adjustment.
First 5 years of my career, I never threw changeups to lefties. And finally, it was against Philadelphia. Finally, one day I said, you know what? I'm going to try it. What do I got to lose? Because I was getting killed by lefties, and it worked pretty good.
I think we've talked about this a million times, but for fans who haven't heard the story, I love the analogy that Rick Peterson gave you on that very pitch. If I'm not mistaken, it's like you can carry 14 clubs in your bag when you play golf. Why just use 2?
Yeah, it was kind of along the whole line of using all my pitches, using all the zones in the strike zone, and that was Tiger Woods can play with 14 clubs. He doesn't choose to use 2. Why are you only using 2 of your weapons?
So was that an aha moment for you?
Yeah, it was.
Worth. Oh, what a pick by Johnson at third. Jason hit it hard, but right at Chris. 2 out.
This was not an easy play. He's playing deep. That helped a lot. But this ball was hit hard. You're not quite sure what the hop's going to do, so you got to prepare yourself for the ball to skip and skip low. It did come up, and it's always easier. You're always taught as a fielder to start low, and it's easier for your glove to come up if you have to.
Yeah, he made that look a lot easier and smoother than it was.
Ian Desmond's 0 for 2. He is struck out, hit into a double play. That double play, though, brought home a run. Washington had a great chance in the 5th inning. 2 on, nobody out, and couldn't score. Wood has struck out 7 men, matching a career high. He's a strike away from setting a career high Ronnie and Desmond.
These two guys are quite a bit alike, though, Wood and Jordan, in that they kind of hover around 91, 90 to 91, 92, and then if they need something or they want to go to a four-seamer, go upstairs, they can go 94. Or in Jordan's case earlier, 95.
It's a career high. Desmond chased the ball helmet high. The Nationals' offensive frustrations continue against the Braves. Bottom of the 6th inning. Game 1 going Atlanta's way at Turner Field. It's a 2-1 score. And the big Bulldog is hunkering down tonight.
Brought to you in part by the Georgia Lottery, by the Home Depot, and by Toyota.
That's right. Everybody set your line clocks. Tomorrow morning, Fox Sports 1 debuts 6 a.m. Eastern Time. America's new sports network. And the Braves also number 1 in the National League East and beating the Nationals tonight. 2-1 is your score, with Johnson, Schaefer, and Andrelton Simmons due up. In a season, fellas, that's been full of amazing numbers, perhaps the most amazing one is this. On August the 16th, the magic number for the Braves to win the Eastern Division outright is 28.
That sounds great.
Any combination of Braves wins and Nationals losses that add up to 28 means Atlanta's going to put another divisional flag up on the facade next year.
Which is almost the temperature tonight, come to think of it. Very chilly for August 16th, wouldn't you say?
Well, we're going to have to make some room up there.
One ball, 2 strikes. To the right side, LaRoche had that one roll up the pocket, but he recovers in time for out number 1. Well, speaking of the postseason, it's approaching quickly, and the Braves are offering fans a chance to secure their 2013 postseason tickets early. Fans can register for a special pre-sale August 27th, 8th, and 9th before tickets go on sale to the public by visiting Braves.com/postseason today.
Speaking of the postseason, there are some critics out there, Tom, who would say that the Braves, with the injury to Tim Hudson, don't have a quote-unquote number 1. They don't have an ace. What's your take on this with these young guys all pitching so well?
I think they've got 3 or 4 guys that they'll be perfectly happy going into the postseason with right now. I think it would be great to have Huddy, don't get me wrong, but I think the guys in the rotation, yes, they're young, but they're talented. They're doing their thing. They've been asked to step up with Huddy going down, and they've done it. And I've said it before, I'll say it again, that they remind me, and you see there what they've done since Huddy's been hurt in 20 games. The rotation's 13-1 since Huddy went down. So, you talk about guys stepping up and filling a hole. That's a pretty good job of doing that. But they remind me an awful lot of where our rotation was in 1991. You got a lot of guys that are young, relatively inexperienced, but have a world of talent. And you know what?
And you had 0 postseason experience.
0 postseason experience. So, I mean, I think you can, when the prognosticators, whatever you call them, are looking at teams and trying to find things wrong, you can find something wrong with every team.
Schaefer shoots one into shallow left center field, but will drop in for a 1-out single. Jordan's aboard for the second time tonight. 1 hit, 1 walk, and he's a threat to run.
But I think that you look at their body of work over the course of the year. You look how they've gotten better as the year has gone on. Like we just said, you look how they've stepped up since their ace has gotten hurt. I mean, the talent is there. Now, are they going to take that into the postseason and run with it? Who knows? That's what we're going to have to wait and find out. But I don't think there's too many teams out there right now that are looking at the Braves and licking their chops saying, hey, we want to face those guys.
Well, I think one of the a huge asset for the Atlanta Braves, and one of them is their bullpen. So if you're a team in the postseason traditionally and you've got an ace or two, those guys typically pitch deep in the ball game. They will, if not a complete game, they'll go 7 or 8 innings. And I don't think it's necessary for these young guys, once they get to the postseason, to have to do that because of the Braves pen and the trust they have in it.
I agree. It's a huge weapon for them. It's something that looms over the opposing team, knowing that, man, look at what these guys do from the 6th inning on or the 7th inning on. And at the same time, it takes a lot of pressure off of the guys in the Braves uniform that are going to be going out there starting the game, not feeling like they have to do too much.
And to your point about talent versus experience, worked out okay for you guys. And Freddie Gonzalez said, look, at some point they got to pitch the first playoff game. Why not now?
If you have talent and no experience, you'll ride it. If you have experience and not a lot of talent, you'll try to ride the experience. Ideally, you'd love to have both, but again, if you're going to pick somebody to win a World Series, are you going to pick a team that you think has the most talent, or the team that you think has the most playoff experience? I'm probably going to side with the team that I think has the most talent.
Me too.
2 strikes for Simmons. And that's off the plate. 1-2 your count with Giannis waiting on deck.
It's turning into a San Francisco night now with the fog rolling in and a little bit of drizzle.
Yeah, mist falling here at the ballpark. And Simmons swings and misses.
This guy's tough. I mean, I don't envy any of the right-handed hitters having to deal with him tonight. He's throwing it from behind their left ear. He's got good movement. Boy, look at that ball go down. Mercy. That was a changeup, but he's tough.
Yeah, he's got that arm slot that makes it comes out looking like it's going to be coming right at you.
Way upstairs to Paul Giannis. 1 ball, no strikes.
There's that 94 four-seamer.
Jordan's out of Merritt Island, Florida. Just a few miles away from the Nationals spring training complex in Vieira. But we understand the Nationals might be moving soon. They might be moving right down the street from Orlando in Kissimmee, across the street from the Astros facility. It's been in the works for a while. I don't believe it's official yet. So we might be seeing Washington a lot in Central Florida in February and March. Foul by Giannis. 1 ball, 1 strike.
Pitches for Taylor Jordan has caused their bullpen to get loose, as you saw.
And I've got him, fellas, for 11 outs via ground ball, including 3 double plays tonight. And he's in the 6th inning with 2 outs. That's been the ratio, about 2-to-1 ground ball to fly ball. That's squibbed toward third. Zimmerman recovers and fires to first in time, and that retires the side. No runs, a hit, a man left. We head to the 7th. Good ball game. 2-1 Atlanta leading the Nationals.
Two to one, and it's time now for our Sun Trust shining moment. And that shining moment is Alex Wood. You see his line tonight: 6 innings, 5 hits, a run, no walks, and a career high 8 strikeouts to this point. And he's been doing what he's been doing of late. He talked about finding his stride, and he's certainly done it again tonight. He's used all his pitches: fastball, changeup, breaking ball. Used all sides of the plate. Got a big strikeout right there. An arch man get out of a jam there. He's been everything that he's been built to be, and continues to get better and better. And like I said in the open, he's making a strong case for solidifying a spot in the rotation himself.
Well, you figure his spot due first in the bottom of the 7th inning. This is his last frame. Let's hope it's a quick, effective, and easy 7th inning for Alex. He's got LaRoche, Ramos, and Rendon, the 6, 7, 8 hitters. And it's the 7 and 8 guys that have given him the most trouble. They have 3 of the 5 hits tallied by the Nationals tonight. Tommy in and out and up and down all night long tonight.
Well, he's used all his pitches. He's changed speeds. He's used all the quadrants of the strike zone, and really has been on the attack all night long. There's that lefty on lefty changeup again.
Left-handers were only hitting .217 against him to begin with, coming into the game tonight.
LaRoche tipped it into McCann's glove, and he stares at Wood in disbelief. That's 9 strikeouts and 3 of the last 4 hitters in the game.
Time for Georgia Power Energy tip number 1. And why not? For Tyler Pasternicki, in less than 15 minutes, learn ways to make your home more energy efficient with Georgia Power's free online energy checkup. Visit georgiapower.com/energy checkup.
Big cheer for the Bulldog, Alex Wood. A career-high 9 strikeouts and a 2-1 lead late in Atlanta. And Alex Wood certainly applies tonight. 9 strikeouts, no walks over 6 1/3 innings. And now he'll turn it over to this accomplished Braves bullpen, which has been dominant against Washington all year. David Carpenter, the first man to answer the AT&T call tonight.
Tommy, who's been better than the Braves at finding guys for their bullpen over the last 20 years? You know, just guys out of nowhere that come in and do wonderful things for the team.
I would say nobody that I can think of.
Yeah. This guy's been a great addition. Did give up a run his last time out against Philadelphia a couple of days ago. But that's a rarity.
And some might ask, why isn't Freddie letting Wood finish with Ramos and Rendon? Well, this duo's 3 for 4 against him tonight. And one pitch will retire the Nationals catcher. That's the second out of the inning. And more of the same fellas from the Braves bullpen to the Washington offense. Look at these incredibly eye-popping numbers.
That's just crazy.
Yeah, I mean, that you have to see it and have been a part of it to believe it. I mean, there's no way you would expect that kind of domination from any team or any aspect of any team against another.
That's a 116 average coming in, and they have allowed 1 run, and it was unearned.
And Carpenter pumps over a strike to Rendon, who's 2 for 2.
I mean, this guy comes in throwing 96, 97 himself.
Ball, 1 strike to Rendon. Story of Carpenter, an amazing one. A former catcher was in the Cardinals system. They had Yadier Molina. Said, son, you can throw hard, go to the mound. And he wasn't really sure he wanted to do it. But it's worked out exceptionally well for him. 3 balls and a strike. Former Baseball America College Player of the Year, Anthony Rendon. Earned those honors in 2010, as Joe said, at Rice.
We'll wait to see how this plays out over the next inning or so. Jordan Walden said his thumb was still a little bit sore after he caught the line drive the other night, but that he was available, so we'll see if he works in the 8th inning.
Swing and a miss. Rendon is down. The Braves have struck out 10 Nationals hitters. That man, Alex Wood, has 9 of them. He's got the lead at the stretch. How about that Bulldog? Alex Wood tonight. A career evening for him as the Braves try to hammer away at the Nationals in the divisional race. 2-1 your score. Here's the Crown Royal game summary.
Braves with that early run, too. The first 2 runs of the game, both scored by Atlanta, both unearned. And they'll take it.
12 straight times the Braves have held the Nationals to 2 runs or less. They'll try to add to a 2-1 lead with Joey Turdoslavich facing Craig Stammen. Steve Lombardozzi's also checked in. He'll play second base and bat 9th. That spot's due first when we get to the 8th inning. Tommy, the other day we were talking about unsung heroes for the Braves ball club. There's another guy that deserves a lot of credit for the work he's done off the bench. Hit to LaRoche at first, and Adam will make the play at the bag unassisted. 1 out.
Yeah, we talk about it all the time with you know, having options on your roster and guys that you can use not only in different positions maybe to start games for you, but guys you can use in different situations coming off the bench. And in today's game, it's very seldom that you're going to see that limited to the 25 guys you leave spring training with. So in the Braves case this year, they've had their share of injuries that they've had to deal with, and it just seems like the guys that they plug in to have to play do the job, or the guys that they plug in off the bench have been doing the job as well.
I remember Pete always talking about this. Pete Van Weren, of course, that coming out of spring training, there's near the end of spring training, there's so much focus and attention. Who's going to make the club? Who's going to be? Are they going to carry this number of pitchers and this number of infielders or outfielders? And he said, and invariably within 2 weeks, certainly by the end of April, it doesn't even resemble the team that you left spring training with because of the changes.
Hayward swings and misses. He's behind in the count. 1 ball, 2 strikes. That's what your farm system's for, and I would agree. That's other big and maybe underreported reason why there are all those flags on the facade on the left. Look at the core of the club. Simmons, Freeman, McCann, Schaefer, and Hayward, and Alex Wood tonight, all homegrown Braves.
Yep. The organization does a great job of growing their own players, and they do a great job of bringing guys over too, like we talked about with Carpenter, and finding a place for them to fit in and be productive. And if the Braves fans, they don't buy into and understand the theory that you can never have too much pitching after this year, I'm not sure if they ever will.
That's driven a long way down the left field line. Did he keep it fair? He did not. And the wind's been blowing and pushing the ball toward that corner most of the night. Just pushed it out of play for Jason.
Yeah, even at the trade deadline, when people were talking about doing different things to tweak the team, improve it a little bit, boy, they're working from a position of strength with starting pitching. They've got all these guys backed up in the minor leagues too. As you just said, you never have enough. Things come along like what happened, the freak play to Tim Hudson. Paul Mahalan with that check swing that has knocked him out for a month. By the way, he's going to pitch tomorrow night in Rome, Georgia, that is. And he did take some batting practice today for the first time.
Talk earlier in the week was that Paul might be good to go some point in that St. Louis series on the road next week. And Jason's retired. Swinging strikeout is the second out of the Atlanta seventh. Delta Airlines, proud sponsor of the Atlanta Braves, as we continue on with Justin Upton.
Just looking at the scoreboard too, as I was looking at that Delta sign, and the Dodgers have brought their act east. They're beating the Phillies tonight 3-0. I think Cliff Lee started that game for the Phillies.
Yeah, that was the series from Hades for the Phillies when they have to face Washington. I think they get Greinke, Kershaw, and Ryu. 1, 2, and 3 in that series. Go get them, Philly. And Ryan Sandberg's managerial debut tonight. Charlie Manuel let go today before that series started. Downstairs for Justin, 1 ball, 1 strike.
I wonder how that'll be received in Philadelphia. If the fans look upon that as, window dressing. You're trying to make us think that it's Charlie's fault. The fans know better in Philly.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, he's been there a long time, got a lot of respect around the game, and with everything that's gone on that team this year, I'm not sure anybody could have held it together any better than Charlie did.
They were 6.5 back at the break and then just utterly collapsed afterward, losing 7 of their first 8 series. And age and injuries and big contracts have caught up to the Philadelphia club the last couple of years. And a swing and a miss by Upton sends this game to the 8th inning. Lombardozzi leads off for Washington. It's a 1-run game late.
has a free game going on. It's been going on since the beginning of the season. It's called Beat the Streak. The idea is to create a virtual hitting streak. You pick a player or two from each MLB team, and then when they continue hitting, you continue on. Well, huge Braves fan Will Bryan was at 47. That was 10 picks from winning $5.6 million. Last Saturday night when Justin Upton's 13-game hitting streak was snapped, so was Bryan's virtual streak. Justin's girlfriend was the one that was actually tracking this online. She told Justin, and he told me today, he felt devastated that he had to do something. So he invited his entire family here today, Kelly and Grant. They got to watch batting practice, hang out in the dugout. He even gave his son a signed bat. And Kelly, his wife, told me that they spent their very first day at a Braves game. But I thought that was really cool of Justin to go out of his way, called his agent, and made sure that Will got to come to a game to meet him.
Yeah, that's very cool, Elizabeth. Nice story.
I didn't realize I could win that kind of money with that. My boys do that, so I'm going to start getting on them to get a little bit better.
Yeah, where do we
Some money
sign
to be
up for
had.
that? Yeah.
Yeah. Here's Steve Lombardozzi batting in the 9th spot and starting the 8th against Luis Avilan. And so, again, with Washington's struggles this year against left-handed pitching, you can understand why Freddie's going with Avilan here with Lombardozzi, Span, Zimmerman, and then the 4th man due, Bryce Harper, in the 8th inning. Avilan, another Brave pitcher who has been outstanding this year.
And how about this stretch he's on? He has a current streak of 35 consecutive appearances without allowing an earned run, and that's the second longest single season stretch in Major League history, second only to Craig Kimbrell, who set the record in 2011 with 38.
Deep short, Simmons, quick release, beautiful play.
Watch how he sets his feet before he gloves the ball. Some guys go into their backhand, they glove it, and then it takes them a step and a half or two to stop and plant their foot. He already had his foot planted. His left one was already set. All he had to do was catch it, set, and throw.
Yeah, no wasted motion there.
Nope.
1 out in the 8th. Here's Span. He has struck out 3 times tonight. He bunts, and it's popped right back to the pitcher. 2 up, 2 down, and time for our Georgia Lottery hitting the jackpot.
Let's talk about the Braves bullpen some more. Their ERA at 2.38 would be the lowest in Braves franchise history. It's the lowest by any Major League team since the '90 Oakland team, and the lowest by a National League team since 1988 when the Dodgers was at 2.31. That's good, folks.
As we talked about at the start of the broadcast, the historic nature of this Braves pitching staff this year. Not just the starters, but the pen, too. And again, Braves pen to this point has not given up an earned run to Washington all year. This is the 14th game head-to-head.
Remember the bullpen that had Darren Holmes, Chris Hammond. Now, Darren Holmes couldn't hardly find a job. I think he came here and pitched in the bullpen as like a tryout, and the Braves signed him. Chris Hammond had been out of baseball for a year at least. They came in, and I'm not going to say anchored because they weren't the closers, but they anchored a bullpen that was outstanding that year. And obviously not as good as the ERA of this one, but those guys, Chris Hammond had an ERA in the ones, as I recall. I think this overall the best pin since then.
Zimmerman tries to split the gap in left center. Schaefer over quickly, cuts it off, dropped the ball. Any chance he had to get Zimmerman was lost after that. And Zimmerman is at second base representing the tying run, and Bryce Harper is indeed going to hit in the inning.
Zimmerman's first hit off of Avilan had been 0 for 4 Bryce Harper's 1 for 6 with 3 strikeouts.
And 1 for 2 tonight with a double and a run scored.
Oh.
Harper gets hit again. And both benches were warned, and now the Nats are on the top step saying, what's up with that? Look at the Nats bench. Avilan will be taken out after Harper gets hit for a second time.
In the back of the left arm. That's how far away that one was from the strike zone.
Harper at first, Zimmerman at second. Tensions running higher in the 8th. Braves this year. Freddie Freeman was talking. Bryce Harper was listening.
But he wasn't buying.
No.
You can understand that. I mean, neither one was intentional. He represents the go-ahead run. But I don't blame him for being a little tight-lipped over there.
Yeah. Both benches were warned. Both managers were warned. More on that in a moment as Luis Ayala checks in with 2 on and 2 outs. And Jason Worth up.
You get hit in the back of the back arm.
Yeah.
I don't think there's too much you can say to take that anger away.
No.
Worth with 2 outs. He looks at a called strike.
Tough spot here. It's, if not the hottest hitter in the National League, one of them. And a guy who's always been good driving in runs.
And a guy like we talked about earlier, you really want to try and tie up inside above his hands, but with warnings being issued, I don't know how much that inside part of the plate will be used.
Base hit right field. Here comes Zimmerman around third. Hayward loads up. Here comes a throw to the plate. It's up the line. And Jason Worth has tied the game with a single to right field after 2 are out.
And you see Max set up inside trying to get the fastball in there, but he threw it right down the middle.
And it was up.
So a double, a hit batsman, and a single ties the game. No chance for Wood to win it now. And Ian Desmond, equally hot, digs in for the Nationals. He's 0 for 3, however, in this game.
This guy's hitting .328 with runners in scoring position since June 1st.
That one's hit toward third, and on the short hop, Chris Johnson makes the play at the bag, and that retires the side. Bryce Harper's been hit by a pitch twice tonight, but Jason Worth exacts some revenge with a game-tying single to right. We go to the bottom of the inning, 2-2 game now. We go to the bottom of the 8th inning. Freddie Freeman, Brian McCann, and Chris Johnson. Greg Stammen still out there for Washington. And that's out of play, foul for a 1-1 count.
Stammen had a great 7th inning. Ground ball by Terdoslavich, and then 2 strikeouts of Hayward and Justin that were excellent pitches. This guy's tough too.
The RBI hit for Jason Worth scores the first earned run against the Braves bullpen since last August 20th against the Nationals. And it came after Bryce Harper was hit by a pitch for the 2nd time. So Tommy, even though warnings were issued to both benches, to both managers, should the Braves hitters look alive here?
Yeah, I would. I mean, I don't know that something's going to happen now or tonight, but I think that up the ante a little bit for the weekend.
High hopper hit toward third. Zimmerman throws awkwardly, but on target for out number 1.
No, that's right in his wheelhouse. Throwing wise, that's where he wants to throw everything. So if he's got to come in and charge and throw on the run, he's very happy with that. He doesn't have to get on top of anything. How Freddie hit that ball, I don't know.
One out for Brian McCann in the 8th inning. And a strike called. It's 0-1.
Brian's been a little impatient tonight. He's rolled over some pitches, grounded to the right side, I think trying too hard to pull the ball. Took a pitch right down the middle for a strike and then chased a bad breaking ball. A little out of sorts tonight.
Way high, 1-2. Pittsburgh beat Arizona 6-2 tonight.
Cool. Good pitch to hit there. Just missed it.
Try to throw that slider down at his back foot like he did for the strike two pitch, and threw it right down the middle.
Ryan will see another pitch, a ball and 2 strikes. Strike 3 over the inside corner at 94 miles an hour. And that's the second out for Craig Stammen. Back to the AT&T Ubers trivia question. Adam LaRoche, a former Brave. He's one of 2 National League infielders to win the Gold Glove and Silver Slugger last year. Who was the other?
I think Jimmy Rollins was also a Gold Glove winner, but I think Chase Headley might have been also, and I'm going to go with Headley.
I had Headley written down, so I'll go with somebody else. I'm going to go with the other guy I had written down, Jose Reyes.
I'll go with Yadier Molina, who won the Platinum Glove, so that may eliminate me because the Platinum is not gold. Way to go, Joe.
Way to go, boys.
Chase Headley of the San Diego Padres. Two balls, no strikes. .40 multi-hit games for Johnson this year. He's 1 for 3 tonight. Turner inside.
Well, the fans are upset, but it's a tie ball game in the bottom of the 8th, and neither side, I mean, if either side hits a guy, it's going to be a big mistake and an accident. Of course, barring something unforeseen that happens, it would cause some retaliation.
High hopper, deep short. Desmond loads up, low throw, and LaRoche digs it out at first. And that retires the side. 6 straight have been retired by Craig Stammen, and this game heads to the 9th. Academy Sports and Outdoors, the right stuff, the low price every day. A lot of excitement, a lot of good pitching. And I want to see a lot of heat from Craig Kimbrell, who's on in a tie game to try to shut down the Nationals' bottom part of their batting order. Joe mentioned the great streak that Luis Avilan has been on. Well, he's second to this man in that same kind of stuff. This is not a save situation, obviously, with the game tied, but Wednesday it was, and Kimbrell set a Braves franchise record.
His 28th straight save, which broke the record of 27 set by John Smoltz. He's been in 7 games against the Nationals this year, 6 for 6 in save situations, 7 innings, a 3-hit shutout ball with 9 strikeouts. No save situation tonight. That's why he's in there in the 9th in the tie game.
Adam LaRoche is 0 for 3 with 2 strikeouts. LaRoche lifetime against Craig is 1 for 9 with 5 strikeouts.
Adam can still turn around a low fastball, though, especially down and in.
Rips that one to right field, and that's the go-ahead run. A leadoff single for Adam LaRoche. Bottom part of the Nationals order has done a lot of damage tonight. And now here's Ramos, who up in Washington, Joe, really took great aim at right field. Figure he'll try to do the same with Ramos in the batter's box, and a big hole with Freeman holding Adam at first base.
And my recollection was he hit the ball hard to right field off of Kimbrell up there. LaRoche turned around a 98 fastball down and in.
Chad Tracy's grabbed the bat. He's in the on deck circle. Greg Stammen is due next. Up the middle, Giannis dives back, flip for the out at second.
Great play, big play. Dan Ugla, we understand, had his LASIK surgery late today. Everything went well. If he is watching tonight, I'm sure that brought a tear to his eye. Eyes. What a good play.
Remarkably similar, Joe, to the play that Paul was injured on last year. Diving stop, and he flipped the ball behind his back. That one between the legs on further review for the force play. And now Tracy hits with a runner at first and 1 out. Last year, the Nationals called their bench core the Goon Squad, and they had a big season collectively. This year, their bench has not been nearly as productive. Kimbrell hoping to keep it that way. As Charlotte, North Carolina native Chad Tracy looks at a called strike.
Like most seasoned pinch hitters, though, they go up there swinging the bat. Took that breaking ball for a strike, but he was hacking after that.
Yeah, most of those guys, it's get in the box, look for that fastball, and try to put it in play.
He rips that ball into right field cleanly. Ramos, with the bad hamstrings, is only able to make it to second base, and the Nationals have their second hit of the inning, and runners first and second for Steve Lombardozzi.
Went back to the breaking ball and just didn't get it buried, Tom. Looked like he wanted to go down and in. And left it out.
Yeah, left it middle down instead of in and down.
And they will take Ramos out now that he's in scoring position and bring on a pinch runner.
It's Kurt Suzuki, the backup catcher.
Lombardozzi was retired by Simmons in the 8th. Strike one. Little late.
A wee bit tardy.
Very defensive. Oh. Just missed.
To the right side, Freeman, the peg to second one. Kimbrel to the bag, but late. Lombardozzi hustled down the line to keep the inning alive. And two long throws helped Washington's cause, and they've got him at the corners now with 2 outs. Replay. Where's the replay?
Yeah, throw the sock out there. Good feed. Good throw back. Both feet hit the bag at the same time. Looked like a good call down there by Marvin Hudson because of it.
Well, can the Braves retire Denard Span one more time? He's 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts and tried to bunt last time and popped out to Luis Avilan. A little tapper back to Kimbrel. Craig's got it, and we go to the bottom of the 9th. Washington threatens but fails to score. Atlanta looks to win it in their last at bat. They've done that a lot this year. We'll tell you how many times after this. by Crown Royal and by AT&T. It's 2-2 after 8.5. The Braves are up for the bottom of the ninth inning with Jordan Schaefer, Anderson Simmons, and Paul Janisch scheduled to hit. Coming up on Braves Live, presented by AT ATL, we'll hear from Freddie Gonzalez, sound from the clubhouse, and all of tonight's highlights. There's how many times the Braves have won in their last at-bat this year, second only to Arizona.
Arizona padded that lead this week. They had 3 straight.
Yeah, I was going to say, it seemed like every time I saw a highlight, they were winning in the last at-bat.
Hey, let's see if Atlanta can do it against Drew Storen. The young man called back from the minor leagues on Thursday after a real rough time of it at the start of the season for Washington.
He's made a mechanical adjustment. Remember, his front leg always looked real stiff, almost like it was locked, like his knee was locked. Now he's got a leg kick that he's trying to impart here. First time we've seen him since he came back, was called up yesterday.
Saw Kurt Suzuki pinch run a moment ago. He will stay in the game and work behind the plate. So all kinds of things in play here in the ninth inning. You've got Jordan Schaefer and his blazing speed leading things off. You know about Zimmerman's throwing troubles, 13 throwing errors of his 15 overall this year. See what Jordan has in store for us in a 2-2 game in the bottom of the ninth inning. He showed bunt but took tomahawk high for ball 1, and Storen wanted that pitch.
That leg kick might help improve his rhythm a little bit.
I think so. A little bit easier to pick it up, put it down. Tough when you have that stiff front leg and you swing it. Your timing better be perfect.
Upstairs, ball 2. Strasburg was the first pick in the draft in 09. Storen was the 10th pick by Washington. Last year pitched in 37 games. Missed the first 89 after having bone chips taken out of his elbow.
And has been their closer up until this year. Certainly a good enough fastball. Nice one at 94. Rush it up there over 95 and then even higher.
A breaking ball froze Jordan Schaefer. 1 out in the Atlanta ninth.
Take a look at the old delivery of Drew Storen. You might remember this when you see it. Wants that front leg. Real low to the ground. Almost drags it along the ground. His foot anyway as he goes to the plate.
Yeah, between the leg kick he had there and that follow through he had there, this new delivery a lot more under control. Almost reminds me, that leg kick of his reminds me a little bit of Mad Dog. Kind of how he came out from the stretch.
Cut, fouled it straight back. And it's a ball and a strike. Janisch on deck, then we'll see. The Kimbrels do 4th in the inning. There's a line drive into center field. And the potential winning run is aboard with one out. Giannis will be called back. Evan Gattis grabs a bat.
Coming off the bench, huh?
Yeah, especially in this situation where he's had the flair for the dramatics all year long.
Evan Gattis as a pinch hitter, remarkable. He has the 7th most at bats as a Brave this year against the Nationals, but has the 2nd most RBIs. He's knocked in 8 runs against Nationals pitching this year, including a home run, you'll recall, off Steven Strasburg. So he can hit anybody's fastball. Got a breaking ball to a called strike.
Remember up in Washington also, I think it was the last day of that series when Jason Hayward had to come out during his first at bat. And later in the game, Gattis was still in there in that spot in the order and came through with a game-winning 2-run single.
Another breaking ball. 0-2.
There's anybody in the ballpark watching this at bat with more interest than Phil Gosselin. I can tell you that right now.
Right.
Right about now, those butterflies are flying crazy in his stomach because if we go another inning, he's getting his debut.
2 straight breaking balls for Gattis. Will Storen have something else off speed? He fought it off.
There's another breaking ball, and Evan got out there in his front foot a little bit. He still reached it. Nationals, one of those teams that really likes to go upstairs and try to get you to chase out of the zone up when they're ahead in the count.
Good time to do it after that last pitch.
Missed with a fastball, 1-2. But if memory serves, Strasburg tried to go higher than high to Gattis, and it was about collarbone high, and he hit it a mile out to left.
That's right.
If you're going to go up, you better go way up to get Gattis.
Storen here, he made 2 really good pitches with his breaking ball to get ahead in the count, and he's still ahead in the count, but he knows that he cannot make an ounce of a mistake here. There's another breaking ball.
1-2. And I'll say the same thing in this at bat that I said earlier this year with Gattis. Reeling him in. That pitch was fouled straight back. He's had a look at everything Storen can throw.
Well, you're getting into that uncertainty or that uncertain area now because you know what he can do with a fastball, but you've thrown him, what, 4 sliders now in this at bat. So you're thinking you got to do something to change his eyesight or change what he's seeing. Is he going to go to that fastball?
That was tipped and that was caught, and Gattis is struck out.
That was a good pitch there. So he started with the breaking ball in the inner portion of the plate. Another one kind of right at him. Another one he got him out in front. Tried to change his look with a fastball. Another slider he got him out in front of, and made a little bit of a mistake there, and then came back with a good one there.
6 sliders out of the 7 pitches.
Gerald Laird gets in at bat. As a pinch hitter, Gerald's 2 for 3 with an RBI. Fastball caught a corner, strike 1.
When you get through the Gaddis at bat, and if you think for a second you can relax, you better be careful with Gerald. He can ambush one. The interesting thing here from the Braves' point of view is that both Gaddis and Laird have now been used back to back. They're your backup catchers.
In the air to right, Worth playing deeply, will get there. And that will send this game to a 10th inning. 2-2 is your score. Zimmerman, Harper, and Worth coming up for Washington. Impressive rookie pitching performances in game 1 of the series.
Both the Braves runs were unearned. Washington able to get some clutch hitting in there in the 8th inning. Part of what happened in the 8th inning, though, was part of the excitement tonight as both pitches were worn. After Bryce Harper was hit by a pitch. No, not this one on a big curveball from Alex Wood, but this one on a 91 fastball from Luis Avila that got him on the back of the back arm. Freddie did his best to lighten the mood. He couldn't.
So we continue on into extra innings. Zimmerman, Harper, and Jason Worth are coming up. Phil Gosselin makes his major league debut. He checks in to play second base for the Braves. And Scott Downs is pitching in his 50th game between the Angels and Atlanta.
He worked in one game of the Phillies series, but that was 4 days ago. Worked an inning, zeros across with a strikeout. He's had some rest, so he could probably pitch multiple innings if need be.
Guessing here, Tommy, Marty Foster telling Downs warnings have been issued, just in case?
Yeah, I couldn't tell, though, if Scott called him out or... I think he's kind of been doing it with each relief pitcher as they come in there to kind of remind them.
Marty's the guy you might remember in the Colorado series here a few weeks ago. Got hit with that foul tip in the arm, in the forearm, wearing a protective sleeve on that area right now, but had to come out of the game. He thought it broke his arm at the time.
In case you wondered about records in extra innings, the Braves are 9-4. Washington is 5-7. Back to the middle. Gosselin's first chance is a big leaguer.
Ball always finds you.
Yes, it does.
I don't know if Scott got a piece of that. Might have to take a look at a replay. And it's funny, when Downs was acquired, the first ball put in play to him was a line drive off the bat of Todd Helton with the bases loaded. Did he touch it?
Oh, yeah.
Bryce Harper hits. And really hopes to avoid being hit. But he can't. It's fouled off his body. Yes, the ball does find you. You're right. Nothing and one for Harper. The Nationals have the heart of their order up in the top of the 10th. Atlanta will have the top of its order up in the bottom of the inning. Braves, as we mentioned earlier, have held the Washington club to 2 runs or less in 12 straight games. Excuse me, 3 runs or less. Beg your pardon. 3 runs or less in 12 straight games. They'll have to score 3 to take the lead tonight. 2 balls and a strike for Harper. A little tight. 3-1.
Had to do that. Had to try to throw something away from him, not get the umpire involved here, and also to take some steam out of Bryce Harper, who was looking back at Downs after the inside pitch. He was looking to drive something 9 miles. Got a 3-1 off-speed pitch. Might get another one.
Bounced over the Braves dugout. We'll do it again. And he lost Harper. So a 1-out walk. Harper is aboard in front of Jason Worth, who has 2 more hits and the game-tying run. Game-tying RBI, I should say. It came in the 8th inning. Extra Innings is always presented by Jack Link's Beef Jerky. Feed your wild side. We're in the 10th.
Six out of 10 in stolen bases for Harper.
Worth has hit into 6 double plays this year. That would be nice if he could oblige in the 10th inning.
As much as the Braves fans have been booing Bryce Harper tonight, he's been on base 4 times.
Over the outside corner for Worth, strike 1.
First base coach for the Nationals this year. A reminder for you folks, is a former Brave, former teammate of Tom Glavine's, Tony Tarasco.
Tony T.
His first year over there for the Nats.
Way outside, 1 ball, 1 strike. It's been a clutch player for Washington. He just hasn't been able to stay in the lineup. Tonight's his 90th game. Injury plagued the last couple of years with Washington. 1 ball, 1 strike. Bouncing ball to short. Simmons. Gosselin turns it. There's the double play.
What a play by Anderson to smother that hop. Goodness.
The Braves turn their second double play of the night and turn it over to the top of the offense. 2-2 in the 10th. In the 10th inning, Hayward, Justin Upton, and Freddie Freeman. 35,663 the attendance this evening, and they take a look at left-hander Ian Kroll.
I've seen him a couple of times. Saw him up in Washington, D.C. Low to mid-90s with a curveball and a change.
Speaking of seeing people in D.C., I saw Billy Wags was up there.
Yeah.
You guys get to see him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
He looked good.
I don't know if he works out as much as you do. But
Well,
he's
I mean,
pretty good.
probably not as hard for him to stay in shape.
We can understand why Davy Johnson's going to the lefty here. You've got Hayward, Freeman, and McCann potentially in the first 4 hitters scheduled. But look at what Hayward has done against left-handed pitchers the last month.
That's an easy guess with that delivery.
to do is bloop one over the infield. Their outfield is extremely deep.
Quickly, 0-2 from Ian Crowley. Out straight back.
By my tally, guys, the Braves only have one man left on their bench, position player. That's B.J. Upton. And the Nationals have Roger Bernardina and Scott Hurston.
Hayward rolls to the right side. There's your first out. Rosie takes care of Jason. And here's Justin Upton. Upton has one hit tonight, but he, like Bryce Harper, has reached base a lot this evening. He's walked, he reached on an error and has struck out. And is 2 for 2 against Kroll with a double.
Handcuff Suzuki.
Now 2-2. Upton has 18 hits this year against Washington pitching. 18 for 52, counting tonight's work. High fly ball, deep left field. That ball is gone! It's gone, and the Braves walk off in the 10th.
Breaking ball with 2 strikes coming into the strike zone. You better get it where you want to. And he didn't get that where he wanted to.
The magic number is now at 26. But tonight's magic number is 3 as Atlanta beats Washington on Justin Upton's homer, and he's standing by with Elizabeth.
Justin, what did you see on that breaking ball?
Just kind of hung up in the zone for me. And, with 2 strikes, I'm trying to stay on the ball, and I got one to hit.
I feel like I keep asking this question. Your team just continues to fight back in the 10th inning. How do you keep doing it?
These guys are relentless. We know what we want. We know we got a goal, and we just keep pushing towards it.
Will Bryan is here tonight, the guy that you found out that your hitless game the other night broke his streak. Do you think this probably helped a little bit?
I hope so. He's a Braves fan, and when he came out, he saw a great game. So his family's great. Spent a lot of time with him today, and I'm glad I got to see this.
How important is this first game of a series like this, even though you're up so big?
It's important. Every game is important this point on, and to jump out early and try to win the series tomorrow.
All right, thank you so much.
Right.
Chip?
Thank you very much, Elizabeth. What a night. The Braves walk off in the 10th inning. Justin Upton, his 19th hit against Washington this year, is a walk-off winner.
Kroll was walking. He knew.
He knew. He was hoping it was going to get down, but
I'm not sure how much it cleared the fence. That really doesn't matter. It cleared it.
counts the same as a 500-footer.
Downs wins it, Kroll loses it. 35,000 in Atlanta went nuts when Justin Upton went yard. 3-2's your final in 10 at Turner Field.